Hello and welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. When you get something that you have to put together or something that's electronic, something that has to be operated, do you look at the instructions or are you a person who just fiddles around with it until you figure it out? Well, as for me, I'm an instruction person. I like the instruction manual, I like the instruction video. Just hand me the instructions and I will work through them step by step, and I will feel like a rock star when I'm done and I know how to do it. I've noticed that a lot of you out there don't like to use instructions. And you can get by like that. But I've also noticed that some of you who don't like to use instructions, sometimes when you just wing it, you don't know the best features of a product, you don't know the extras that are available because they're not self-evident if you haven't read through the instructions. I've also noticed that if I send out a project for people to do that has instructions attached to it, the people who don't read the instructions often turn in a product that's missing some element that was asked for, or missing a date that mattered or something like that. For sure, there are a lot of things we can do, we can just fiddle with and figure out and do it well enough to get by. I'm just saying, in a lot of cases, when you check out the instructions, you have an opportunity to maximize the end product more quickly and more fully. But what does instruction manuals have to do with memorizing Proverbs? Isn't that why we're here? Well, let's look at today's verses. Our focus is in Proverbs chapter 3, the verses 1 and 2. So let me just read those to you now. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. Let's read that again. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. First, let's look at verse 1. Never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. Now, what does the writer mean when they talk about these things I have taught you? I am not a great Bible scholar. I cannot say so authoritatively, but it seems logical to conclude here that the writer is pointing to either the Proverbs in a more narrow focus or looking at the commands of the Bible on a broader spectrum, although it would probably be the Old Testament because Proverbs is an Old Testament book. Or maybe it's referring to both. We're called to store these commands in our heart. And hey, that's what we're doing here at Wisdom Wednesdays, right? Now let's look at verse 2. If you do this, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. That's a pretty good duo of promises, isn't it? I feel like the first promise, live many years, is dependent on the second, and your life will be satisfying. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a bunch of extra years if my life is going to be not satisfying. Both long and satisfying. It's a pretty good coupling of promises. Now, does that mean that everyone who memorizes the Bible will automatically live long and be satisfied? I memorized the words. Well, let's stop and think about this. Have you ever known someone who could quote a lot of Bible, but they were a total pain to be around? They were not helpful, they were not hopeful, not reliable, not trustworthy. I have known those people. I bet you have too. My guess is that store these commands in your heart business is crucial here. Storing something in my heart is way more than knowing how to say the words in correct order, right? Something stored in my heart will affect my thoughts, my decisions. It will affect my attitudes. Something stored in my heart will shape my personality and my conversations. Something stored in my heart will become part of who I am. and not just a list of things I labor to do or not to do. So that's our challenge as we go forward, memorizing and meditating on the Proverbs, is to interact with them, to live with them, to let them shape us in a stored in my heart kind of way. You know, not just another intellectual exercise. So, okay, let's do 3 quick rounds of recitation before we go. So, here we go. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years, and your life will be satisfying. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store your commands in my heart. If you do this, you will live many years, and your life will be satisfying. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years, and your life will be satisfying. I like that repeat it 3 times business to help starting to get it into our head. It takes more than 3 times, but 3 is a good start. So that's all for this week at Wisdom Wednesdays, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you'll be back.